Hello. Today I would like to share with you prophecies from Mount Athos and other Orthodox sources concerning the beginning of World War III and some signs which will come before the war, namely Erdogan stepping down, and then yet another absolutely massive earthquake in the Marmara region of Turkey, the completion of the Amur River Bridge, and they will even begin issuing the One World passports. The saintly Lombini left for heaven in 2002 and spoke about times of bloodshed which will come in some 20 years after her death. While she spoke mostly about the events in her homeland Greece, she also mentioned that it will be similar all over the world. A huge explosion will shake Athens. By the way, if you remember the prophecies, they are planning a similar thing in a number of other capitals. And after the huge explosion, the Athens will be reduced to ashes. Its residents will flee to the villages where some 3 families will be forced to live in one house. One fine morning, people will wake up and they will be told that all banks are now closed and there is no private property. After that, they will push the world passport scheme. The economy as we know it will no longer exist. Only those in government service will have more or less what people now call a normal paid job. The rest will have to show their one world passport to be able to get a few morsels to eat. However, those who do not wish to lose their soul forever should not take it, and God Himself will take care of their survival. Lombrini continued that those who do not wish to betray the Lord not only should not get from the one world passport food, but they should not accept it when those who have passport give it to them anyway as gift, because that food will be poisoned on purpose and will harm them. That food will be non-human. Electricity will become so costly that people will start switching to oil lamps. Thieves will be stopping cars on the road in broad daylight. They will chase the driver away, and there will be no police for anything at all. These were just some highlights from her prophecies, just a couple of details which did not appear in previous prophecies by other sources. As many others, her main emphasis is on not accepting the new smart cards, because in the moment one accepts them, one becomes officially property of the devil. And now some prophecies from Nikolai Turbin, who by the way was very precise and accurate. He gave the complete story of how the dam broke and flooded Kiev some time ago. He made the description, of course, long before it happened. He used to say that later on all technical devices will start emitting peculiar sounds which initially will make people sick, and later on they will start killing them. And then there will be those small black boxes, he continued. They will be causing severe migraines, and at times they will emit such a frequency that they will knock off the person in another dimension. Well, if people start getting knocked off in that way, maybe that's what Vyacheslav meant when he said that it will be very common at the very end for the people to directly speak with evil spirits. But for those who are impatient and want to receive personalized postcards, invitations to hell, for them, there will be opportunities even sooner, because they're combining the latest trendy artificial intelligence chatbot with video avatars, and of course later on they will combine them with holograms, which will basically appear as a real person talking to you and advising you. Exactly what has been described by this Bible verse. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many who do not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Well, this talking artificial intelligence avatars will be live into the image of the beast, and when they start killing people with frequencies, as Nikolai Trubin prophesied, and that will be killing those who do not worship the image of the beast. He showed the people of his time, well, here at this place in our church, there will be this Karanavka. I didn't know that word, so I did a search. These are the results for Karanavka. Apparently, he used the word Karnavka to describe the future cash terminal, which now doesn't surprise anybody, but the prophecies are coming true. He was saying, in future, even in the church, people will not be able to pay in any other way. And that was long before this entire technology became known. So the things I'm telling you about the smart devilish cards are not a fanatic waste of time. They are the truth. These people really had the vision. They were able to see through time. The next is not a prophecy from a saint, but a narration of the vision of a very ordinary person who died and returned after seeing quite a lot. Although the video is difficult to understand, certainly the most unique piece of information is about the timing of the Third World War, the famine, and everything else. According to him, it will follow after the very important bridge between China and Russia over the river Amur is opened. That happened some half a year ago, after many delays. Of course, the bridge is being built so that subsequently it will facilitate the Chinese takeover of Russia. Preparations for that have been going on for years on both sides already. As far as I could hear, only 2 monasteries, or at least 2 major in Russia, will remain loyal to Christ. The rest will convert to the JAL service, and the one I could identify is Diveevo. It's actually a nunnery. Probably this has been seen in previous prophecies as well, because I have heard that many monks have been advising sincere Christians to get rural properties in the region, because that will remain sheltered from the jail. In this interesting video, they mention prophecies from monks, which didn't make much sense decades ago when people heard them. Like, for example, they saw that they're firing missiles and targeting Moscow from the city of Kharkov. In some languages, it is Krakow. So before, people couldn't make much sense of it, because that was USSR territory. Why would anybody fire missiles to the capital? But now, with the latest developments, this won't be a surprise at all. Other thing from the prophecies, they describe that the torment of the local people, first it will be very difficult for them in Ukraine, but then that same thing will spill over to Russia. And probably what we read in the very recent news from 1-2 days is that this satanic hired hitmen, they started crossing the border with Russia and do the same thing what they were doing to the people on the other side. Also in this video there is an interesting report by soldiers whose contract is finished and they come back home after fighting these hired hitmen gangs. So what they report is that these hitmen don't always behave in an entirely human manner, in the sense that, of course, we know that they are very cruel, but that happens sometimes to people What surprised the soldiers is that even when they're in a situation when the opposite side fires in them, they don't even show the normal human reactions of having actually fear of that. So one is left with the impression that they have been given some sort of bad drugs, or they have been seriously zombified. Also, in this video, there was some information that short range nukes could be used in this war with Ukraine. And then, when this zombified personnel, when they leave the trashed place, because it will be poisoned after that from the nukes, so as they flee from the trashed land, their mission being accomplished, they will do very horrible things to women. So there was a call for all women to go away from those regions. Also, there is an advice for those who are caught in a situation with radiation around them, and they have no way to escape so fast. What they can do for their protection is draw a cross in the air for angelic help. And according to the video, some soldiers have been already trying that and report to be working. And in my previous videos, I've been actually recommending you to start creating that cross protection even now for the future, so that when emergency comes, it will be already strong and always in the astral field around you. And in this video, they mention a prophecy of the saintly Urgebadze, of whom we spoke in previous episodes. Well, finally, people understood what he meant when he was saying a long time ago that a jester will trash Ukraine. And indeed, before playing his role in the current tragedy, he used to play roles as a jester, Zelensky. As far as North America, first it will be hit by a terrific earthquake, then by a major volcano eruption, and then by yet another earthquake, which is described as technical. I guess that means man-made. And then St. Andrew's Fault will start sliding, and that's when lots of the continent will go underwater. And while natural disasters will start first of all in Western Europe, in Eastern, in the Balkans, that will be the area where the big war will be lit up initially. And a bit more detail from Paisis Vitagorets, from the previous episodes on this war. One sign that the war will be very near will be a huge earthquake around the Marmara Sea. The earthquake he describes is way worse than the very recent Turkey earthquakes, to the point that half of Istanbul will be submerged, and the entire Sea of Marmara will be full of buildings and people who are not alive. The devastation of the earthquake will reach all the way to the capital of Ankara, that's in the middle of Turkey, which means that in parts of Greece and Bulgaria there will be devastation as well, if it is really that strong. And he describes the situation as this, that it will be so bad that people will not manage to bury the victims, and a terrible cholera outbreak will result from that. Yet another sign which will have to be fulfilled before the war starts is that Recep Erdogan, who is currently president of Turkey for 2 terms, Before that, he used to be prime minister since year 2003, and then mayor of Istanbul for 9 years. So the prophecy says that he has got strong powers or connections, and until he's in office, everything will be more or less stable. But once he goes, the full region will be destabilized. Subsequently, the entire Middle East will turn into a huge battlefield. Now, Erdogan's term ends in half a year, this summer. According to Turkish law, he cannot be re-elected. Of course, there are rumors that he is too strong and he will make some sort of arrangement to stay longer in power. So we'll see how will that go, but he will definitely not stay in office forever. And Paisis Vetagoritz has warned that until he is in office, everybody in Greece should have food provisions for at least half a year, if not more, because of the upcoming war. Paisis Vetagoritz also mentions a third sign for the times of extreme hardship. I'm not sure if it will be exactly before or after this particular war, but he mentions that the Omar Mosque in Jerusalem will be taken down in order to build the famous third temple in Jerusalem to welcome the Dajjal over there. Now, on the map we see that the Omar Mosque is somewhat not really on the Temple Mount where a third temple is supposed to be. There have been talks on alternative locations for building the temple. However, I couldn't find any hint that the relatively modest Mosque of Omar would serve the purpose. This is the only remark that may or may not be relevant to this. That the Mosque of Umar is often confused with another Muslim landmark of the capital, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now that's on the proper Temple Mount, and that has been one of the locations which arguably could serve as a site for the third temple. So since the Paisis Vetagorit's prophecies were not written down by him directly, but by people who heard him speak, maybe some of them confused it. Or maybe there is no confusion at all. Maybe Omar Mosque will come at the spotlight at a later moment, and that will be the place. We will see. And yet another sign mentioned by Paisis Vetagoritz, and that has been fulfilled already, is that he said that Turkey will put dams on the Euphrates River, and thus in the other countries where it used to flow before, there will be no water, and the 200 million army of the King of the East mentioned in the Bible, which is the Chinese army, will be able to cross by foot the Euphrates. The dams in Turkey got built, and now we are far ahead with the drought, enough for the army to cross. But how about the number mentioned in the Bible? Will it be correct? We'll see, but currently the active members of the Chinese army are 2-3 million, like full-time, and they can mobilize 17-18 million more with a whistle. But still, that will be 10 times less than the prophesied number. However, it is not a secret that in China they have this program since long time, which requires, in case of need, to mobilize more or less the entire adult population of men and women. Well, if they do that, yes, we can reach the biblical number of the soldiers. And now, how is the World War gonna play out? In the beginning will be all those provocations It already started in Europe. They say now the Turks, they need, and Muslims, they need their own places where they can live peacefully, like in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So Paisis Pythagoras explained that these trends will continue. And that is true. The war in Yugoslavia is over since years, but recently, with the help of media, they're trying to ignite the fire again. So what they will do next, according to Paisis Pythagoras, is that Europe will say, you see, Turkey, we have created zones for your own people in Europe because we are so good and tolerant. And now you, Turkey, you have to become noble and good as ourselves and give independence to the Kurdish people. And then the Kurds will start rioting in Turkey and Armenia. After the noble EU intervention in Turkey, the Turkish army will draft lots of military and send it to the Dardanelles and the Bosphorus, which are obviously of prime world strategic importance. And because of the provocations, the Russians will come with all their military, wipe out the Turks in 1 week. And after that, the actual world war will start because the NATO members, France, Germany, UK, and 6, 7 more, says Paisis Pythagoras, they will gather army and go to the spot, which will be the first terrible head-to-head collision of NATO against Russia. As a result, Russia will sweep everything on its way all the way to the Persian Gulf and will stop. After that, EU will have a demand for Russia. They will say, you have to leave the region within 6 months. However, Russia will not comply, and Europe will start gathering yet another bigger army for a bigger war, and then the cities will be destroyed. It will be a full-scale world war. Most likely, this will be the Middle Eastern prelude to the actual war which I described in the episode called the Third World War. That episode focuses mostly on the action which will apparently subsequently take place in Europe. Paisis Pythagoras says that the entire war will continue some 2.5 years. I'm not aware of any prophecies from him about the second part of the war. Either they are not there, or simply people do not publish them much. These are Eastern European sources, and while looking at prophecy, I have noticed that people in all countries tend to have less interest in spreading news about the defeat of their own region. I have definitely noticed such a tendency, and they like to only speak about the prophecies in which their country wins. He said that the actual reason for which the European military will come to Turkey is that they will see that the country is falling apart to pieces. It will stop existing, so they will come with the hope to grab, seize territories. And the result will be that most of Europe will be trashed, after which a certain Middle Eastern country will try to actually rule Europe. So, as I said, I could not find any account from him about the later developments of the war, but he speaks about the outcome in long run that will unite the Orthodox nations in an union, but not in the way the clever war organizers were attempting to do with one central religious committee manipulating all religions for selfish ends. At the end, it will not be as they planned. The union will be different. Byzantine will be actually resurrected. The good spirit of Byzantine was moved to Mount Athos in Greece, where Paisis Pythagoras himself was a monk, but he said the current Greek youth, they're unable to conquer or do anything about resurrecting Byzantine. That's why God will arrange that people will come from abroad to make the changes, and Istanbul will become Greek territory, although Greece itself will not participate in this war. So that's how Paisis Pythagoras sees the beginning of the World War, yet from other prophecies it looks like Russia is going first to Ukraine and then continuing simply south to Turkey and the Middle East. I guess both perspectives are true, just because, as Irmeyer said, the Third World War will be simply a culmination of number of international and civil wars. This is what the so-called history textbooks tell us about the end of the Byzantine Empire. Of course, it is all lies. Paisis Pythagoras tells us that it was European crusaders who simply came and destroyed it. That's the truth. That's why God will bring their descendants at the very same place, and that's where they will be destroyed. And the true spirit which was kept in Mount Athos, it will be restored, the spirit of the true faith. And a few words from Paisis Pythagoras about how practically Satan, the devil, puts forward his plans in action on earth. His orders are, channeled or heard in certain groups somewhere in the Middle East, and after that they are forwarded to the Vatican and the colony of America, where they're turned into political plans, translated into such plans, and that's the way it is now. But at the end, it will not go according to their plans. Until then, Paisis Pythagoras explained that we will see more and more polarization of the society, in the sense that in the name of freedom, one of the groups will be diving deeper into the world of sinful, instant gratification, while the other group of people will be interested in nature and harmony and will live very modestly. They will start going to holy places instead of spending time in sinful perversions. Svyatogorets explained that now most people are mixed and they have elements of both groups, but in future, when these events come, it will be impossible to stay in the middle. One will have to join one of the camps. Now, what about the Chinese takeover of Russia, which came up in many previous prophecies? Most probably that will come after the Russian army is obliterated in Europe, because at that time it will have no army. They will simply come and settle, take over without any fight. A prophecy from the saintly Matrona. Russia will be divided at that time in 4 parts. The last war will be with China. Pray to God that you don't end up in the Chinese part. In the English part, it will be somewhat better, less cruelties will be there. I'm not sure to whom will the other 2 parts belong, but in this video I found yet another reference to the Japanese settling in Russia, because their land will be not suitable anymore for human habitation, according to one of the greatest prophets of our time, Vanga. And in this same video, she speaks about the very end, when Russia will be restored, and she will be like a huge guardian eagle above the entire world, leading it into the new era of purity and knowledge. Vanga also gave a definite timeline when to expect that. In year 1976, she said that the big eagle will become the guardian of the world after 60 years. And I'm so happy that I could put this together in English until it is not too late, because they're openly talking about shutting down the Russian internet and cutting it off from the rest of the internet of the world. And then this precious information will be very difficult to get for those in the West, where the group of the people who will be going for the saintly ways, free of sin, will be far less, but still it will be there. That's why it is good to download all series, even the playlist with the current update of the current situation update, and the playlist with the Survivors of Atlantis series, because that tells the story, this same story that will now come to resolution in the Survivors. It is described how it developed over the last 1,000 years. So it's better to have the original now until they have not changed it yet, because as it is said in the ww3 prophecies, they will forge all the books which contain the truth. They will rewrite them, and then they will publish them in their poisoned new form. I don't see what can stop them to do the same with the videos. Forging the voices of those who have been speaking the truth certainly will not be a problem for them. As we see in the news, the rewriting of the books has already started. The prophecies are not the reason for which the events happen, but it is the opposite. The source of the prophetic visions are the events themselves. And here is some real footage from the future of the disgusting pest infestations. The black stuff is actually countless caterpillars. It may not be a bad idea to have an extra supply of diatomaceous earth, a natural powder, non-toxic for humans as well to eat. It kills indiscriminately all insects in a mechanical way. It does not poison them. In that way, you may save some of your crop. Other option would be to have huge supplies of very hot pepper and make extremely hot tea and spray everything with that. Some people actually mix it also in their food supply when they put it in packets to kill possible bugs. And that's a good idea, because one doesn't need to worry about washing it off one day, since diatomaceous earth is also recommended for people orally against all kinds of internal parasites. Something else which one can put in the packages with food provisions is bay leaf. I've seen people who do the packaging in traditional way to put bay leaves as well. I've seen even experiments with wool onions, fresh ones actually, and there was a test and it gave actually best results. Of course, all these things will not replace the oxygen absorbers, but can be an option for people who cannot manage to get oxygen absorbers. And now questions from viewers of the channel. This is a good question. What can the people in EU do to reject the smart card? Yes, they may start sending it by post. Usually they will require signature, but it can come as a surprise and you may not even know what's in the letter and sign for it and find out after you open it. Of course, if that happens, we should try to return it, but the way things are going, I doubt they will even make provisions for such a procedure. If you have done your best to reject as much as possible, practically, the previous documents, and if you're determined not to get the smart card, when you hear that the project is about to be launched, which is almost at the threshold now, you can intensify your prayers for practical help to pass through this test unharmed. It is a very general prayer, but we don't know how exactly it will play out. And if one day it happens that somebody hands you out an envelope and later on you find out that it's a free voucher for a warm holiday in hell, you may try to send it back by post if it has an address from which it is sent. If that is a safe thing to do, you have to apply your discrimination. As far as I gather from the prophecies, the most important is not to make the mistake to use its benefits for some time, and only then, when the bill for the Rainbow Party comes, try to renounce it in some way. I think at that time the so-called renunciation will be of no or little effect. But there will be many so-called spiritual people who will be assuring you that as long as you make up your mind that this is not valid, it will be all fine. Yes, such type of spiritual or astral revoking could work, and I think it's the only way for people in certain situations, but it will work only if you do it when you get the passport and not after you have used its benefits for some time. And they will be introducing the smart cards in the most sly way you can imagine. Like in the nearby regions here, when they come to the villages to give the pensions to the old people, now without announcing any program or anything, they just start bringing smart gadgets and tablets and tell them on the spot, from now you will have a digital signature, and if you don't sign the device, you will be not getting your pension the next month. So the thing is that they have disguised this very same program under different names, and it is launched already in many countries under different names and different pretexts. Here in Denmark, it is my ID. Life is very difficult without it. Internet shopping is almost impossible. The bank cannot be used digitally, so one has to pay extra for account information through phone. The people in general are not aware that the same ID is being adopted worldwide under different names. Soon people who are not enrolled will not be able to bank. And I promise you even much more. They're thinking even about the smallest details well in advance, like this, you see. The smart chargers will be checking each and every time if you're getting from an approved source, and if the entire usage of any technology is approved according to their standards. Luckily, Thomas will be outside the system, and that is fine with him. But by now, it should be clear to everybody that Vyacheslav prophecy, that they will leave absolutely no way for somebody without the smart card to exist in their technocratic society. And that's why I'm pushing this idea to have some sort of housing like this, just in case. Because in the cities it will be endless complications. Not only you won't be able to buy and sell, you may not even be able to cross the street or use the elevator. You know, my parents live on the 11th floor in a high building. Of course, there is staircase as well, in case the elevators don't function. And once I used it, I noticed actually most of the floors have their door locked, the door towards the staircase. God knows who's got the keys, and he's gonna use them according to his discrimination, in the interest of public security. Now it is only the threat of a dangerous bug, but in the future they will push these cards a lot also under the banner of fighting terrorism. And we all know very well what is their definition of terrorism. Now they will be going more in the direction, they're starting to introduce these terms like Catholic extremists and Christian extremists. So this will be an entirely new category. And this is a comment under the signature revoking video. Michael says he does not believe he has been informed about the things he signed. However, when the day of reckoning comes, it may turn out that it is not really so. A contract signed under pressure or under deceit is null and void. Yes, such a contract could be nullified if one proves in court that indeed one has been deceived. But even if that happens, one is responsible for all the obligations he did not fulfill before he nullified the contract. Also, you don't believe you were informed, however, everything is printed there. Maybe the letters were too small and it was too difficult to read, but it was there. So there is deceit, but it is not like black and white, because the devil also offered perks to his people, and we have been using those perks. Why are we so eager to cancel our contracts now, when the time came that the devil wants his part? Why we were not complaining that much when we were busy with our sinful lives under the protection of democracy when the times were relatively peaceful? Now, God will intervene, you say, and that's absolutely true, He will. But when He does, at the day of reckoning, some people may end up on the side they did not expect. I hope you personally will not be one of them, but in general, this tendency of excessive victimhood will make many people sign up the contract of the mark of the donkey, because they will think that there is no other way and they are not guilty, and this is not actually the sign because they have no choice. There will be millions of them. That's why the Satanists are benefiting very much from this excessive preaching of victimhood. A viewer is asking, shouldn't we avoid all plant medicine because it connects us to the spirit of the planet, which, according to the viewer, could be bad? Now, first of all, the question of who is Gaia, worshipped by the modern, misled New Age people, that is very complex. It cannot be answered with a few sentences because it requires understanding of what is avatar of the Lord, to which celestial category does Earth belong originally, and lots of other stuff, which I did my best to touch upon in a previous video. I don't remember which one exactly, unfortunately. But because that is complicated, when people who do not see the full picture try to delve in it, they come up with, far out stuff like Lucifer equation mark the Earth. No, Earth is not Lucifer, we are not devils, we do not belong to hell. Currently, however, Earth is very polluted. The external chemical pollution is just a manifestation of the polluted beliefs of the people who live, because the people are the primary species of Earth. So those who are tricked into worshipping the polluted aspect of the Earth, misled by distorted New Age philosophies, because the New Age as such, the philosophy was originally good. So the misled people, they may worship a very minute aspect of the Earth, which is its sickness, current sickness, which is very transitory and a very minor part of its history. And those who lack a broader view, they come up with conclusions like Gaia equals Lucifer, which is ridiculous. The truth is that even good and even very saintly people get sick. This doesn't mean they turn into Lucifer at that point. They remain saintly, and by simply being around them, one gets benefited. On the top of that, drinking ayahuasca doesn't mean that you will directly connect exactly to the spirit of Mother Earth. There are, I don't know, billions and zillions of other possible scenarios during an ayahuasca ceremony. I mean, following this ridiculous logic, you should not be eating vegetables. You're eating Mother Earth. Better eat 3D printed Middle Eastern meat imitation spiced with infected grasshopper spice, green zero emission powder recommended to you straight from the Chamber of Hell in Brussels. In overall, as an answer to your question, I would recommend starting getting your knowledge and definitions of what ayahuasca is somewhere else. Somehow the sources you are currently using, I would not recommend them. And as far as understanding which God is who, let's start first with understanding what is God, what is deity, who is the Father, who is the Holy Spirit. In Hinduism, that is called Paramatma. In Christianity, it's called Holy Spirit, but it is the very same thing. The description is identical. And then who are the sons of God? In Christianity there is only one, in Hinduism there are many. And then how are the deities created? By far most people will find it very difficult to wrap their mind around that, and one should know and understand the entire series of set books. I will try to include a link to this playlist of mine in the description of this video. A viewer is asking where she could find a resource which could help her take care of possible dental infection with natural means. For reasons explained in this playlist, I wouldn't recommend you to look for such sources. At least I haven't encountered anything that I would recommend to anybody. I think it will be far more beneficial for you to invest the time which you would normally invest in browsing natural cure resources in actually doing the acupressure method recommended in that playlist. And as far as the infection itself, iboga microdosing, kambo, aya, and homemade hemp extracts of the full thing, the entire plant, without removing anything precious from it. This type of things may help. It depends. I have treated 2 times severe root nerve infections which were caused by damage which a dentist did on my job some time ago. First time I cured it with aya, but it took very long and it was fine for years, and then suddenly again strong pain. The second time I cured with iboga and reiki just in a couple of days. But there are many dental problems which will be difficult to fix even with ayahuasca and iboga. In this aspect, I'm not prepared for being self-sufficient in terms of dental care. And again, I'm calling for help if any of you has knowledge in this field to help me and everybody else by sharing how did people deal with such problems when there was no modern dentistry. I'm sure that will give some clues. So this is one of their projects of which you will hear more and more often from now on. At places they're even implementing it partially. Of course, the concept as such is good by itself. Unfortunately, they will use it as a bait for fishing souls, and in the future, when the food supply gets tight, the so-called universal income will be only for the marked people. Of course, the free lunch will not continue long, and at the end they will left only with their bitterness for trading their soul for a couple of meals.